In this episode, some of the names have been changed. Dayton, Ohio, the heart of the Midwest, where old-fashioned values are appreciated and crime still shocks the core of the community. St. Patrick's Day is usually a time of celebration, but in March of 1994, the party's aftermath took a deadly turn. Mary Pickett's husband, Frank, was unusually late. Early that morning, he'd gone back to the local lodge to clean up after the St. Patrick's Day party the night before. Mary hadn't heard from him all day, so she decided to drive to the lodge to see if he was okay. Frank's vehicle was still parked outside, and the side door of the lodge was wide open. She instinctively began to fear the worst and phoned the police. Dayton police officers responded to the scene.
My husband didn't come home last night, so I called over here and there was no answer.
Yeah, stay by the front door.
Nervously, Mary waited while the officer entered the lodge. He noticed something unsettling. The St. Patrick's Day decorations were still hanging, and it was eerily quiet. Then, on the floor of the kitchen, he discovered a lifeless body.
I'm gonna need for you to stay by the front door. Don't let anybody in.
Concerned the assailant may still be in the building, officers cautiously searched the area. The perpetrator was long gone, but before he fled, he left another calling card, a second victim. On the men's room floor, another man was dead. With not much to go on, police launched a full-scale murder investigation. Mary Pickett confirmed the identity of her husband and the other victim, maintenance worker Boyd Walker. She explained Frank and Boyd were on the cleanup committee and were getting the lodge ready for their weekly meeting. Dayton Police Detective Doyle Burke examined the bloody scene and began to piece together the events that led up to the murders.
The first thing that caught my eye was the doors were very formidably locked. However, they didn't appear to have been tampered, so I felt there was definitely no forced entry.
Detective Burke looked around for other clues and saw the cigarette machine had been pried open and nearly all the money was gone. He then found a bloody hammer on the floor of the back office.
It looks like some blood and hair on that hammer there. Do anything we want to take?
Crime scene technicians photographed the possible murder weapon. It was carefully collected and sent into the lab for analysis. Detective Burke's next move was to reconstruct the crime step by step.
The victim was in the restroom area, and he appeared to have been laid out there and then beaten to death rather than just caught by surprise. The other victim in the food preparation area was very different. He appeared to have been caught off guard before he was beaten. I kind of thought that perhaps he was the one that may have opened the door for the suspect.
Samples of the blood found in both rooms were preserved and sent to the lab along with the other evidence gathered at the scene. Detective Burke took note of the blood spatter on the walls and the floor, hoping the pattern would be a clue as to how these two men died. As coroners removed the victims' bodies from the lodge, Detective Burke had many questions about the killer. He believed the men not only knew their killer, they may have opened the door for him.
Okay, I think I'll expedite it.
The autopsies were performed at the Montgomery County Coroner's Office by Dr. Russell Updegrove.
How
palpated a few skull fractures here also. We're going to need a photograph of this.
Preliminary findings indicated that Frank Pickett received 19 blows to the head. Boyd Walker had been struck 18 times. Both victims suffered cerebral contusions.
Area with a hard tile floor surface, and looking at the blood, it looks like he may have just been caught by surprise from behind.
Dr. Updegrove's findings also revealed the murder weapon left crescent-shaped marks on the back of their heads.
Upon further examination of the individuals at the injuries sustained on the heads of these individuals was consistent with the types of injuries that could be inflicted with a hammer.
Forensic scientist Denise Rankin processed the hammer at the Miami Valley Regional Crime Lab.
I examined the hammer for blood and for hair. I attempted to remove the hairs from the hammer, and there were red stains, which I tested to determine if they were blood, and determined that they were blood, and they were a mixture of both victims' blood.
The analysis performed on the hammer came up empty. The investigation stalled. A task force meeting was called to determine the next move.
At this point, we've got nothing on it. You guys are the main crews downtown.
Detective Burke was joined by Detective Tom Lawson. Together, they headed up the task force.
We got nothing. You guys got.
One officer learned a vagrant named Timothy Clifford had been trying to scam money from a local church on the day of the murder.
Timothy Clifford.
It was the first solid lead.